Hello, boys and girls. I'm so sorry I couldn't be there with you today because we're covering something so complicated. But I made this video hoping that I'm setting you up to be really successful in finishing your paragraph today because I can draft a paragraph about my animal. Echo! I can draft a paragraph about my animal. Last time we asked, well, what in the world is a paragraph anyway? And I reminded you that animals are amazing. And when we researched our animals, we found tons and tons of really cool facts and information. And if I try to take all of that information and put it into a sentence, it'll sound a little something like this. Star-nosed moles have tentacles, and they use them to find food underground, and they eat worms and beetles, and sometimes they go underwater to find mollusks, fish, and insects to eat. Whew. All wrong. Why is it all wrong? Well, this is a run-on sentence. I'm trying to cram too much information into one sentence. So then I reread all the same information to you, but in paragraph form. And it went something like this. A star-nosed mole eats many different foods. Some foods they find underground. They use the tentacles around their noses to find worms and beetles. Some food they find underwater, like mollusks, fish, and insects. Their favorite things to eat are insects. Now that sounds much better. I didn't have to catch my breath. There's lots of punctuation, room to pause, and it flows better. It's a little bit easier to absorb the information when you can take those pauses versus reading everything in one super long sentence. This works much better. Now, my paragraph follows the formula that all paragraphs follow. That is, they start with a topic sentence. The topic sentence introduces your reader to what you're going to be writing about. And this isn't where you get into your details. This is where you give a general statement about what you're going to be writing on. Then you give lots of details, 2 or more. I wrote that some foods they find underground and some foods they find underwater. These details help to support my main topic about the different types of foods that moles eat. But to make it even better, I added examples. For the underground food, I talked about how they use the tentacles around their noses to find worms and beetles. For the underwater food, I named those things mollusks, fish, and insects. These examples help to make my details stronger. Now, some of you are going to have lots of examples and others not so much. It depends on how much information you are able to find. But the main goal is to give as much detail and as many examples as you can. Then, of course, we talked about how you wouldn't eat a cheeseburger without the bottom part of the bun, and you wouldn't write a paragraph without a closing sentence. The closing sentence keeps your paragraph from falling apart, from being messy, from dragging into the next paragraph. So we close it up with a sentence. Their favorite things to eat are insects. Now, I'm not really saying much. I'm not saying anything really new. All I'm doing is closing up my sentence, my paragraph, and you can do that by either restating your topic sentence in a different way or adding a small extra fact. To help you write your paragraph, I gave you this graphic organizer, and the graphic organizer has the same parts in it that I had in my paragraph. There's a place to put your topic sentence, 3 places to add details, room to add examples if you have them, and a place to put your closing sentence. Now, we got started the other day, and most of us were able to write our topic sentence. I wrote one for mine. Remember, the topic sentence should not include details. So all that good stuff that you researched about your animal, save it. This is not the place to put them. This should be a very general statement. It lets the reader know what they're going to be reading about, and it makes them want to keep reading to find out the details. The star-nosed mole can only be found in North America. Now, I'm not giving you a whole lot of information, but you know by that sentence that you're going to be finding out a lot more about North America, where the star-nosed mole is found. and their habitat just by reading that sentence. Now it's time to move on to the details and the examples. So to do this, let's focus just on the details for now. The details are the facts that we collected. We took notes on our animals, we researched them, and we found out all kinds of cool stuff. I want you to put the details that you put on your research paper onto the detail place in this graphic organizer. So one of your dots will be your detail 1. One of your dots will be your detail 2. One of your dots will be your detail 3. Now, for mine, I decided to start off by writing about the different places in North America where the star-nosed mole lives. So my first detail is they live in the eastern United States and southeastern Canada. Then I decided I'm going to write about what kinds of places in those areas they live. So I wrote that they live in meadows, forests, and marshes with wet soil. And notice that matches what I put on my research paper. Then I added an example. For example, they like to be near lakes and ponds. Now notice I don't have an example for my first detail, but I did have one for my second, so I added it in. I also want you to notice that I didn't carry over my writing to the third detail line. That's because this is all still part of my second detail. You want to keep it all together. The third line, well, that's for my third detail, okay? Remember, I said I was going to be a little bit picky, and I'm being a little bit picky, but trust me, it'll help you out on the next step. So for my final detail, I put the rest of my information into a couple different sentences. The star-nosed mole digs tunnels. Then they make a nest inside the tunnel. They live there with their colony. So all of that information goes along with this whole detail of them living in tunnels and nests. So now I've got all my facts, information, examples, details, all that good stuff right where I need it. The only thing left to do is the conclusion. So for my conclusion, I decided to keep it really simple. And what I did was I switched up the wording of my topic sentence. Let me show you. North America is the only place you will find the star-nosed mole. Do you notice that all I actually did was take my naming part from my topic sentence and move it to the telling part? I just switched things around. So it can be that easy, that simple if you want it to be. You can also add a little extra fun fact about where they live at the end. Either way is totally fine. It's a nice way to end your paragraph. Now it's time for you to do it. I know this feels hard, but I trust that you can do a great job. Now point to your neighbor, tell them, you can do it. You can write a paragraph. Now turn to your other neighbor and say, you can do it. You can write a paragraph. Now tell yourself, I can do it. I can write a paragraph. I can't wait to read what you wrote. Hopefully, I'll get to see you tomorrow. If not, I'll see you next week.